All right, welcome everyone to the Judiciary Committee hearing in advance of the special session. My name is Carl Rhodes, Chair of the committee. This meeting and YouTube live stream is for the Judiciary. I'm sorry, can everybody hear? I'm not sure I got the guys in the back. Okay. This meeting and YouTube live stream event is for the Judiciary Committee's 9:30 a.m. agenda on 4 appointments to the circuit and district courts for the First Circuit comprising Oahu. The other members of the committee, to my left is Vice Chair Mike Gabbard. To my right is Senator Elefante, and Senators San Buenaventura and Avoa are on their way. This hearing is being streamed live on YouTube. You can find links to viewing options for all Senate hearings and meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. If you're interested in seeing the written testimony, you can go to the legislature's website at capitol.hawaii.gov. In the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this due to major technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business this afternoon at 3 p.m. in this room 016, and video conference and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. We do have a 2-minute time limit on testifiers, except for the nominees, and a little countdown camera. Do we have a buzzer too today? No buzzer. Okay, so I'll be the enforcer in this 2 minutes. Okay, so first up we have Governor's Message number 1, Jordan J. Kimura, for consideration and confirmation to the Circuit Court of the First Circuit for a term to expire in 10 years. First up on GM1 is Governor Green, or his designee. Well, not surprisingly, he's in support. David Minkin, I did see here. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, and Senator Elefante. My name is David Minkin. I submitted a written testimony, but I felt it important and imperative to be here today. Once again, the governors have decided to take another partner of mine and elevate that partner to the judiciary. It's with mixed blessings, but Jordan Kimura is an absolute gem of a lawyer. He is a wonderful person. He is a smart lawyer. He is a dedicated lawyer. He's a dedicated family man. He brings everything to the table that you want on the judiciary. He is smart, he's decisive, and he understands the role of a circuit court judge. He has appeared with me in multiple cases in the circuit courts throughout the state of Hawaii, from motions to jury selection to basically everything possible that a lawyer needs to do. He understands the rules of evidence, crucial for a circuit court judge, absolutely crucial. Jordan Kimura will be a fine addition to the judiciary. And with that, I submit on my written testimony. Any questions from the senators?
We'll take everybody, and then if you can stick around for questions, somebody might have one.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, senators.
Next is Lynn Costalis Matsuoka, Executive Director, testifying for the Sex Abuse Treatment Center on Zoom, I believe. Yep. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, and members of the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
I'm sorry, before you go on, IT, can you turn up her volume a little bit? It's a little quiet in the room.
How's that? Better?
Can everybody hear? Okay, go ahead. We'll start the 2 minutes over again. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much, members of the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Chair Rhodes, as well as Vice Chair Gabbard. My name is Lynn Costalis Matsuoka. I'm the Executive Director of the Sex Abuse Treatment Center. I stand in support of Jordan Kimura as the First Circuit Court judge, as appointed by Governor Green. I echo everything that David Minkin says. It also comes with some mixed feelings on my part. Jordan Kimura has served SATC well over the last 10 years as our pro bono counsel. I think the important thing I wanted you all to know is that Jordan's pro bono representation of SATC is not necessarily a light touch. SATC gets involved in court because of our the rape kits, and so Jordan is actively involved in the subpoenas and the legal process that SATC finds itself in. So we have come to rely on his expertise. and his guidance. He has been such a great asset to SATC by way of his legal representation, but his pro bono work speaks volumes about his character and his commitment not only to service provider like ourselves, but the legal process in which he's engaged. So we stand in strong support of him, and I thank you for the time to testify on his behalf.
Thank you very much. Those are the, other than the Hawaii State Bar Association, those are the only testifiers who have signed up for in-person or Zoom. Is there anyone else testifying on GM1 who would like to testify in person or on Zoom? Seeing none. Okay, so let me just note that there were 63 supportive testimonies as testifiers for Mr. Kimura and none in opposition. And if the Hawaii State Bar Association is here, you can come up. There you are. Come on up. Or if you don't want to come up and just want to say qualified, that's fine too.
Rhonda Griswold on behalf of the Hawaii State Bar Association, to stand by our written testimony and
Qualified. Okay, thank you. Okay, members, for the testifiers, any questions? Maybe for Ms. Matsuoka at the Sex Abuse Treatment Center, if she's still there. There you go.
Yep, I'm here.
How long has Mr. Kimura represented you pro bono?
He has been our pro bono counsel since 2012, I believe, so over 10 years now.
And he was pro bono the whole time. It was never a.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Pro
All
bono
right,
the
thank
whole
you.
time. You're welcome.
Members, other questions? Okay, Mr. Kimura, come on up. Morning.
Aloha and good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, and Senator Elefante. Thank you for your time and consideration of my nomination this morning. I'm incredibly honored and humbled for this opportunity by the Judicial Selection Commission and Governor Green and his administration to serve the public as a circuit court judge of the First Circuit. Although my roots trace deeply back to the Big Island, where my father and his parents were born and raised, I was primarily raised here in Honolulu by my mom, who had immigrated here from Seoul, South Korea. My mom did what she could to provide the best opportunities for me growing up. And through her dedication and hard work and the opportunities they created, I was taught the importance of giving back to a community that has given so much to me. So, doing what I can to give back has always been a priority in my life, dating back to my service as a volunteer with the Hawai'i Nature Center since 2000, to serving as pro bono counsel for the Sex Abuse Treatment Center for Kapiolani Medical Center for the last decade. Together with my wife, who is also my high school sweetheart, I hope we can pass down a lasting impression to our 2.5-year-old daughter as she grows up in this community. Many have asked through this process why I want to be a judge. Before law school, I had the good fortune of volunteering with the Honorable Karen M. Radius of the Family Court, who is now retired. I watched her tirelessly serve the people to resolve family law disputes. But more importantly, Judge Radius opened my eyes to the profound impact a judge can make in our community. She was the key founder of one of the first girls' courts in the nation to address systemic issues related to female juvenile offenders. Today, the Girls' Court continues to accomplish its goals of assisting female juvenile offenders from becoming involved in a criminal justice system as adult women. Judge Radius identified a systemic issue and found a vehicle to address it. She might not know this, but Judge Radius had planted a seed in me that has driven me to this very moment today. If confirmed, I will be able to dedicate my career to public service, and I will do all I can to serve the people of the First Circuit fairly, impartially, and independently with the highest ethical standards and in a manner that upholds the integrity of the judiciary. I believe I have a wide breadth and depth of practice experience that translates well to a circuit court judgeship. I have practiced extensively before our specialty courts that involve nuanced areas of law, such as probate and trusts, foreclosures, tax appeals, matters involving the land court, and administrative appeals. I've handled numerous state and federal appeals before our appellate courts, and my work with the Sex Abuse Treatment Center has broadened my experience to the criminal and family courts, where I've argued various motions seeking to protect the victim counselor and other privileges. And as co-managing partner of the McCorson Law Firm, I have been a diplomat and a decision maker entrusted to manage one of the largest law firms of the state. From these experiences, I have gained conflict resolution skills, and I've been a diplomat, which are ever more important in today's judiciary, where many civil matters are resolved not by trial, but by settlement conferences facilitated by judges. Further, I believe leadership at the McCorson firm selected me as co-managing partner because I have the right temperament to serve in such a role, which I will continue into a judgeship if confirmed. My upbringing, my time with the McCorson firm, and my practice have taught me to be patient, humble, and resilient, and that everyone should have an opportunity to be heard and treated with respect. But I also readily recognize that I will have a lot to learn and much responsibility. If confirmed as a circuit court judge, I will do what I have done my entire career: strive to be the most prepared in the room, study and learn unfamiliar areas of law, and seek answers to questions I may have so my decisions are rooted in law and independent of outside influence or personal ideology. The people of the First Circuit also deserve a judge who will make timely decisions, and I will dedicate my career to avoid delaying the administration of justice. I appreciate this opportunity to share this opening statement before this committee, and I humbly ask for your support of my judicial nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, questions? Go ahead, Senator Elefante.
Thank you. And first of all, congratulations
Thank you, Senator.
on your nomination to this. And thank you for taking the time to meet with me last week to discuss your nomination. You have glowing remarks from across the board in terms of your background, your litigation history. I did notice that, and we talked about this, that there's a lot of experience that you have in the civil matters and what you talked about. But for the areas where you may not be strong in, say, criminal or other areas, how do you perceive yourself to kind of function? And if you were on the bench, how would you go about, basically determining cases that would come before you that you may not have maybe a lot of knowledge or expertise in?
One of the benefits of working at a firm like the McCorson firm is that we're thrown new areas of the law all the time. And we want to do our clients justice by making sure that we're ready, we've studied up, and we go into that courtroom being the most prepared in the room. I'll do the same thing. If I'm tasked with a calendar that requires me to study up and be familiar with unfamiliar areas of law, I will do everything I can to prepare myself so that I am the most prepared in that room.
Okay. Thank you for that. And the other question and final question I have is, obviously you come with a great experience background. Most of that has been sort of in the private side. And on the one end, one can say having experience in the private sector can be beneficial for coming on the bench. And then on the other hand, one could say, well, maybe not, because there's no sort of previous government experience, whether you're a PD or prosecuting attorney. So coming into this role, how do you see sort of yourself as a circuit court judge, knowing that you may not have that prior government experience, but come with it with a different set of perspective? Basically, what I'm getting at is, how do you see yourself in your role and sort of vision if you were a circuit court judge?
Well, I think the judiciary is benefited by diverse backgrounds and experience and training. And so I believe that I can bring that strong civil background to the judiciary and hopefully shine in the areas in which my experience and background and training can assist in creating a stronger judiciary overall.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Senator.
Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator Gabbard.
And congratulations to you as well.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
What are your thoughts on the current criminal justice system here in Hawaii and areas of improvement that might be needed?
I think the criminal justice system is making great strides towards improvement. I think through this process, I've learned a lot about Act 26 and the improvements that have been made with respect to providing diversion options for judges who are faced with people who are coming through their courtrooms for misdemeanors. I'm a strong proponent of treatment, having been pro bono counsel with the Sex Abuse Treatment Center and having seen what benefit treatment can have on people who have gone through trauma. And so treatment is something that I believe is a good key area of focus that now judges have a toolbox for to be able to divert people coming through with misdemeanors. So I think it's moving in the right direction. And hopefully there's continued discussion and dialogue on how the criminal justice system can be improved going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. I do have a couple questions. So kind of dovetailing on what Senator Elefante was asking. So I guess it sounds to me like you would prefer to be in a civil calendar. And I was noticed that your comment in the law journal when you were still in law school was on the environment. Is that a calendar that you would be interested in?
It's
Have you been involved in environmental law since?
I have represented, actually, it's funny that you mentioned this. In my course in practice, I've actually represented developers defending against environmental impact statements. So yes, I have been involved in environmental law issues through my practice.
Okay.
And with respect to your question, Chair, I'm flexible for whatever the judiciary needs me to do. And further to Senator Elefante's question, if I'm tasked with trying to learn an unfamiliar area of law, I will do everything I can to study and be prepared for any calendar that's thrown my way.
So I think it's probably unlikely that you'll end up with a criminal calendar, but if you did, what at the circuit court, if you get, it's going to be I guess it's almost all felonies at circuit, maybe all felonies. I can't remember whether there's any exceptions to that rule, but it's quite likely that you'll get somebody who's been charged with a felony, and if he's convicted, then you look at his past history, and it's also quite possible it'll be somebody who's got 12 misdemeanor convictions, 35 petty misdemeanor convictions, 14 violations. How do you, for the sentencing part of it, how will you factor those previous convictions into your thinking?
Well, it is a factor that's set forth by HRS section 706-606 to take into consideration. And so another factor is to make sure that a judge is protecting the public. And all those factors need to be balanced in creating a sentence. Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis, depending on what factors and circumstances are presented by a defendant that has been adjudged guilty.
Okay. Everyone occasionally disagrees with a law or statute that's on the books, including myself, and that's one reason I like the job, because you can actually change them. But judges are in a unique position of interpreting and enforcing statutes. Will you have any trouble enforcing statutory provisions that you don't agree with?
No, Chair. As a trial court judge, a judge is required to uphold the law. And so I will follow the law, I will follow the Constitution, and I will follow the state statutes that are passed by this legislature.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Members, other questions? Okay. I have a little more on on your comment for the law journal back in 2009, I guess it was.
2008.
2008. So you propose in your, I guess I could tell people what the name of it is since I'm looking at it and they're not. The title of the comment was the environmental assessment issues surrounding the exclusion of projects significantly affecting Hawaii's fragile environment. One of the suggestions you have in there is that an action should include any project or program with significant impact on the environment. It's hard to know exactly how to ask the question. So that could include a lot of stuff. And how is a judge supposed to know what? I'm a little skeptical of the idea that the HEPA should that the environmental assessment law should be expanded to cover that much territory. Do you still feel like that's the way to go, or has your experience since then changed your view somewhat?
Yeah, this article was, as you mentioned, Chair, written when I was in my second year of law school and published in 2008. And since then, I've had a lot of experience representing developers, as I mentioned before, defending against environmental impact statements. And so I've seen the process and I've seen how comprehensive that process is. A little bit of a hubris of youth here as far as that position that was taken. And I think I'm a little bit more balanced in my approach. And I probably wouldn't advocate for the same today. But obviously, a judge is supposed to set aside their personal ideology. And so regardless of what my personal beliefs are, I will follow the law and I will uphold the law.
Okay. So there was one other part of it that I thought was interesting, and that was, you said you thought that with the broadening the benefits of broadening the definition of action, one of them would be reduced intervention by Hawaii's legislature. And this was in the wake of the super ferry situation where I was here, a couple of us were here, Senator Gabbard was here, and most of us voted in favor of not exempting it from the environmental assessment process, but just saying that they could start operating before it was complete. And the Supreme Court struck down that law. But I thought it was interesting that you said that reduced intervention by Hawaii's legislature. It's like, well, but the law itself was passed by Hawaii's legislature. So it's like impinging on our own kuleana. It's like,
Well, I think, Chair, that line was related to the fact that obviously the legislature did not create that issue. The Department of Transportation had exempted the super ferry from an environmental assessment process. And that was challenged at the circuit court level and ultimately went up to the Hawaii Supreme Court, where the Hawaii Supreme Court determined that an environmental impact statement was required. At that point, the governor's office had asked the legislature to hold a special session to try to pass a bill that might exempt the super ferry. And I think that comment specifically was to have avoided that issue in the first place. Putting myself back to my 2008 self, to have avoided the need for that special session because they would have already gone through an environmental assessment.
okay, so I guess you're basically saying that the intervention is more of, I guess the tone of the article was sort of like, the legislature shouldn't get involved in this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, but that's the legislature's job, is to change the law.
I understand, Chair.
I guess it's really a separation of powers question. So you weren't intending to question the authority that the legislature has to pass laws.
That's correct, Chair. I was not.
Okay. Okay, members, other questions? If not, thanks very much. Now, for those of you who hadn't, we won't be voting on your nomination until this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So for anybody who's waiting around for the vote, it won't be till 3. So thank you very much. Thanks for being here. And
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. Thank you very much.
we will move on to judiciary communication number 1. That's Erica E. Ireland's for consideration and confirmation to the District Court of the First Circuit for a term to expire in 6 years. First up on JC1 is Celeste Gonzalez. And I'm going to break my normal 2-minute rule. I don't really want to discuss the reasons, but this is a one-time exception. I've never done this before. So 3 minutes. Welcome. Good morning. For anybody who's waiting around for the vote.
Yes, hi.
So thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Gonzalez.
There's crosstalk, so it's very hard for me to know when I'm supposed to start, but I see the clock. So I am here giving 1 million support to Erica E. Ireland for the term of district court judge. And as a pro se litigant myself, who's been fighting her own cases for over 2 years, I have had the pleasure of observing her in the courtroom, but I have not had the privilege of having her as a judge presiding in any of my cases. But doing my observation, I have noticed 3 things about her as a pro se litigant, and it is that she's very patient. She explains procedural matters very fairly and openly. She's even pro se litigants are. Pro se litigants come in and they're already disadvantaged, they're nervous, they're scared, and they're often confused.
Sorry to interrupt.
And even when sometimes the conversation between the judge and a pro se litigant become frustrating for the judge, I noticed that.
No, not for you. For the
throughout the process. I also want to say that she does not provide legal advice to the attorneys as well as a pro se litigant, which is a plus from a pro se litigant's point of view. The last thing that I want to say here is that if I could sum up how to observe her in the courtroom, it would be the word that comes to my mind is equitable. She gives the pro se litigants equal time to express themselves and to share their experience. So thank you very much.
For you.
One more thing I want to add, when I come in to observe, bailiffs have also made very positive comments about her as I'm walking in and doing an observation. One of them had said, "Oh, Miss Gonzalez, the judge today, she's fantastic." Another one said, "Oh, she's just amazing." And I watched her at least 3 times. So she would be a great addition to the district court system. And pro se litigants would after their cases. Thank you so much for the time here and my opportunity to share my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the only person who has signed up to testify on Zoom or in person. Is there anyone else who wants to testify on JC1 in person or online? Okay, seeing none, members, questions for the testifier? If not, Ms. Ireland, please come up. Sorry, Judge Ireland, I forgot. My apologies. Judge Ireland. Oh, I'm sorry. And before you start, there were 26 testifiers in support. Oh, and I'm sorry. I'm just totally messed up today. Ms. Griswold from the HSBA. Did you want to testify or do you want to just and qualified? Okay, great. So any questions for HSBA? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead, Judge Ireland. I apologize.
No problem. Good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, Senator San Buenaventura, Senator Elefante, and Senator Abba. I am so honored to sit here before you today, and I thank you so much for your time and consideration. I also want to thank Chief Justice Rechtenwald for this amazing opportunity. I have been a per diem district court judge of the First Circuit for a little over 2 years. And I have to say, it has been the most rewarding position I have ever held. The district court truly is the people's court. And I feel that I am able to make a difference every day that I sit. I love the people I work with, the other per diem judges, the full-time judges, and our excellent staff. And I love the work we do. I know without a doubt that I want to serve as a full-time district court judge. And if I am given the opportunity to do so, I promise I will work tirelessly to best serve our judiciary and community. I did not initially set out to be a judge. And I certainly didn't imagine that I would be sitting here before you today. However, as I reflect back on my journey, I feel that my background and experience has helped prepare me for this role. As a per diem judge, I have been extremely grateful for the breadth of my experience because it has given me the flexibility to sit on a wide variety of calendars. I've been able to draw upon my experience as a law clerk for the Judge Shackley Raffetto of the Second Circuit, who presided over criminal and civil calendars. I've also drawn upon my trial experience and knowledge of criminal law, which I gained as a deputy prosecuting attorney. I've also reflected back on my experience as a community prosecutor, where I collaborated with community stakeholders to address pervasive neighborhood crime, including my early involvement with Weed and Seed and my contribution to violence prevention programs. And of course, my civil litigation experience has been highly relevant on the bench. I have been guided by my work as a court-appointed kukua kanawai, master, and special conservator, and the perspective I have gained in working with some of the most vulnerable members of our society, including those who are houseless and those that are mentally ill. My experience as a neutral fact finder has also helped me as a judge to be decisive, efficient, and to hold parties accountable. I've also found my extensive mediation training and experience to be extremely helpful on the bench, not only as a settlement judge, but also I feel that it's really contributed to the development of my judicial temperament. I feel that I am more patient, compassionate, empathetic, and it has allowed me to connect with all types of people. It's also helped me to identify interests and allow parties to be heard in a productive manner, which is so important at the district court level. It's also made me quite comfortable with emotionally charged cases, which are numerous at district court, including TROs, summary possession cases, and even small claims. But one of the biggest influences on my development as a judge was the late Judge Darylyn Lendio-Heim. And those of you who knew Darylyn know she was one of the most dedicated public servants, if not the most. She worked tirelessly to serve the judiciary and the community. But one of the greatest things about Darylyn is she wasn't just satisfied with her own achievements. She wanted the same success for others. And she was passionate about passing on her knowledge, bringing other people up, especially women. And I truly don't believe I would be here before you today if it wasn't for her mentorship and encouragement. And if confirmed, I will strive to make Darylyn proud and help carry on her legacy in any way I can. I also believe my passion for serving my community has helped me as a judge. Public service has been important to me from a young age, and I have been given many opportunities to serve. Starting in college at UH Manoa, I taught Chapter 1 reading at Washington Intermediate School. I was in law school at William S. Richardson. I was a member of Advocates for Public Interest Law, the Elder Law Clinic, Family Law Clinic, and the Prosecution Clinic. I was a volunteer guardian ad litem and a Life Foundation volunteer. And later, I served as an Access to Justice volunteer, a volunteer district court mediator, and a volunteer family court paternity mediator. And I have generally volunteered hundreds of hours with the Mediation Center of the Pacific as a mediator, facilitator, and trainer. And I dearly hope that I'm able to continue to serve the community as a full-time district court judge. Now, last but not least, I would not be here today without my family. And I left this for last because I was a little afraid I'd become overly emotional. So my parents, who reside on Maui and thankfully are safe and sound, have been my foundation. I still speak to them daily and love them dearly. And while I didn't appreciate it at the time, I am so grateful for them instilling in me a strong work ethic. It is amazing how much more you value your education when you're paying for it, and how quickly you learn time management skills when you are juggling multiple jobs in the service industry and attending school full-time. My husband, Rolf, who I met and married over 20 years ago here in Oahu, has been my rock and my closest friend. He truly is the best person I know, and he's made me a better person. And my daughter, Harley, who was born and raised on Oahu, is the light of my life. She just left for college with my husband, and while it is breaking my heart, I am so proud of the woman she's become, and I cannot wait to see what amazing things she does. With that, mahalo again for your time and consideration, and I humbly ask for your support as District Court Judge of the First Circuit. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Members, questions? Well, I'll go ahead and start. It would appear that you would prefer to be in district court or continue to be in district court. But of course, CJ can transfer you over to the family court if you wanted to. My understanding is you'd be okay with that if that's what happens, but So it's really a family court question because family court has jurisdiction over Assisted Community Treatment Act law, the Assisted Community Treatment Act, which I think you're familiar with.
Yes.
It allows a judge, after the appropriate hoops have been jumped through, to order the subject of the petition to take their medication or go on a medical program. And I guess my question is, well, the underlying question is, do you have any philosophical problems with ordering someone to take their medications if the appropriate legal hoops have been jumped through?
Thank you, Senator Chair Rhodes. So I do not have any philosophical problems with ordering that treatment once the legal hoops have been jumped through. I think that law is underutilized to an extent after seeing people come to court with mental illness. I believe that law is therapeutic, and it is a great tool for judges in dealing with people that come before them with mental illness. As you noted, their legal rights are protected by the appointment of a guardian ad litem, and I think it is. I thank you for that tool.
Comparing an ACT order with an order to go to the state hospital, which would you view as the less restrictive?
So the ACT order would be less restrictive because they would still have their freedom, but they would just have the court-ordered medication. And it provides some oversight, a safety net, and it allows them to live in the community somewhat independently.
Okay.
And Senator Rhodes, if I might just address one thing, yes, I am very passionate about serving in district court. I would serve at the pleasure of the Chief Justice, and I would happily serve in family court as well.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, Senator Elefante?
Thank you, Chair. Judge Ireland, congratulations, excuse me, on your appointment and selection.
Thank you.
We talked about this question when we met. When we met last week, specifically had to do with, and this question is also for the next two nominees as well, Mr. Hayakawa and Mr. Brown. But I asked this to you as you're going to be on district court, if confirmed, is there's a particular incident that I have in the community that I represent, which of the last 2 weeks has a particular individual has been kind of terrorizing the community, going around. And the community, part of the Neighborhood Security Watch, feel like the court system is sort of a revolving door for releasing this person back into the community. He has family and friends in the area. We speculate that he's houseless. We also speculate that he may need mental treatment and help and services. So given your background and experience with Mediation Center and dealing with this particular population, how as a judge, without knowing all the facts to a case, how would you go about in having to deal with this particular individual?
Thank you, Senator Elefante, for that question. And it's a great question. First off, as a sitting district court judge, as we talked about, I can't comment on a specific case or what I might do in that case. I can talk about the issues that you've raised with, this revolving door, the perception that there's a revolving door. So as a judge, I take every case, individually, and I look at the background. I listen to everybody who is before me, including the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the defendant. If there's a pre-sentence investigation, of course, I take that into consideration. If this is a motion to revoke probation and we have a probation officer, I want to hear from the probation officer. And if there's a victim or complaining witness, I want to hear from them. My philosophy is accountability and consequences, but that looks different in every case. And so I'd want to be, finding out what's going on here and what's the appropriate sentence. How are we going to stop this behavior? Sometimes you mentioned that there's maybe a mental illness. We have Act 26 that is very helpful. We have, is there a substance abuse problem? I mean, what is going to be a deterrent? If there's something that where we need jail time, and is jail time going to be a deterrent? If we have a petty misdemeanor, it can be difficult because if you want to sentence them to probation to have some oversight, you can only give 5 days jail. So it's a balancing act. I promise that I will look at every case, look at everything presented fairly, and try to fashion the most appropriate sentence that provides accountability, that is a deterrent to future behavior and protects the community.
Thank you, Judge
Thank you.
Ireland. Thank you, Chair.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for stepping up and putting your application in. How often did you serve as a per diem on a per month basis since you've been appointed April 21?
Right. Thank you for your question, Senator San Buenaventura. I have sat probably an average of 2 days a week.
Okay, have you noticed whether or not you've been sitting more often since COVID hit, or for what?
I actually came in during COVID.
That's right, 2021. Okay.
Yes.
And so most of those, when you sat, was it virtual or was it in the courtroom? How
So,
often?
so it has been a real combination, and I have to say the judiciary has done an amazing job of providing access to justice even during COVID. When I first started, I was sitting in 10B, which is where we hear temporary restraining orders, and that courtroom was always in person. Since I started, because I believe there's a belief that we need to see these people in person and we need to resolve it quickly, and that if we need a trial, we're going to go to trial that day. So that was always in person. And then most of the other calendars were via Zoom. The great thing about the pandemic, I think the silver lining, is that we've now incorporated Zoom hearings. So I think people are really grateful that they can participate for most things, except for in-person trials and evidentiary hearings. They can participate via Zoom. And I think it's.
So how often have you sat in person versus in Zoom?
So I'd say, because I'm usually in person, even when we were via Zoom, I'm in person in the courtroom, and where people are Zooming in.
Okay.
So I'm always basically in person, and so
And how often was it TROs versus criminal versus civil? Could you give me a breakdown?
Okay, yes. So primarily, especially at the beginning, I sat on the civil side. I started out, probably the first 2 months was solely TROs, small claims. And because of the influence of Judge Lendio, she had me.
Judge Lendio is circuit court judge, though.
No, district court.
Was she?
Yeah,
I
so
thought she was circuit. Sorry.
No, she was our lead civil judge
Okay.
at the district court. And so she took it upon herself to train me. And then once
good.
trained, she had me cover a lot of her calendars.
So mostly civil.
So mostly civil. So I'd say
Civil
about
PROs.
70, well, and then I branched out to all civil. So summary possession, regular claims, regular trials. And then I also more recently, especially since Darylyn's passing, I've sat more on the criminal side. But I'd say over the 2 years, probably 75% civil and 25%
Okay, and the
criminal.
reason I'm asking you for a breakdown is
Yeah.
because if you notice the types of questions we're considering, it's mostly criminal, especially when we're talking about potential mental illness.
Yes.
Okay, so mostly excuse me, I actually went to school with her.
Did you?
So, since her death,
Uh-huh.
Judge Lindio's death, you are sitting mostly criminal. Is that what you testified to, or I don't know?
No. I mean,
Okay.
I'm sitting more. I think before her death, I probably was 80 to 90% on the civil side because
Okay.
she had me cover
So
for her
after her
personal.
death, it became what, more like
I'd
25%
say-
criminal?
I'd say 40% criminal, 60% civil.
And of those 40%, how many did involve like ACT
They don't involve ACT.
think
I
so.
think that I believe is just for family court where you hear those petitions. But we Act 26 generally, where we have an expedited fitness hearing, that those cases are pretty prevalent, especially on the 7C custody calendar. We see a lot of mental health issues with the defendants who are in custody.
Okay, so of those Act 26, the 40% of it was Act 20, no, 40% of it was criminal. What was the percentage of the Act 26 of the 40%?
I'd say overall, for all criminal cases, including custody and not custody, I'd say about 10% where we knew it was a Act 26 or a fitness case.
So you're
And
saying
then
that 90% of the 40% were like Act 26, where there was some kind of mental illness?
No, I'm saying, so generally overall in criminal, I'd say about 10% that we know there's an Act 26 or a mental health issue come before me. But in the custodies, when we have custodies, I'd say it's more like 40 to 50%
How many
are.
of those involve potential diversions?
So the potential for the jail diversion, it would be, that would have to be a petty misdemeanor, nonviolent. And so I would say the other part about the jail diversion is they have to be willing to do it. Okay, so they have to, it's voluntary. And some of the issues that happen when it's voluntary is that if it takes too long for them to get accepted, they are not willing to do the jail diversion because they'd rather get out for credit for time served.
So it's a very small percentage.
It is, I'd say, right, yes, for the people that who actually do jail diversion, from my experience. Now I have more limited experience than some of the other judges who sit on the custody calendar a lot. But I'd say, first off, I'd say it's a great program. It's crucial and very important. I think we'll see more people using jail diversion, but I'd say it's 5 or 10%.
Okay. And how many of those do you see them return? Do you know?
I don't know about that because I haven't, and yet it hasn't been, and I don't think, I haven't been involved long enough to see the return.
Do you have any philosophical problems? Not problems. Do you have any philosophical positions regarding diversion?
No, I don't. I think it's a great opportunity. It's a wonderful tool. It allows stabilization of the defendant. So a stabilization bed, which is super important because a lot of these people are homeless.
Okay,
and it has the wraparound services to support them.
I'm sorry if I keep interrupting.
Sorry, no,
because there's for others, and I'm sorry, I'm sort of dominating this. And we have more nominees. So I apologize if I'm interrupting, but that's the reason. What I am thinking about is also when I asked you how often you had in person, because in my experience in going in district court, when I see judges being more effective is when they actually speak, one-on-one. Not necessarily one-on-one, but in person with the attorneys. And especially when we're talking about the potential for diversion. How often, I guess, that's why I asked you about the virtual. And I know you love virtual, but I don't see it as effective in getting people to the table to agree. Because as you said, diversion, you need to have an agreement. Should you be nominated? Should you be confirmed? May we have some kind of commitment that at least should be open to the idea of having more diversion and having these kinds of pretrial status conference hearings so that we don't clog up our jails with potential people who could be easily diverted.
Yes, absolutely. And when I say Zoom hearings, I absolutely understand the importance of people being present in person, trials, settlement conferences, I prefer in person. And on the criminal side, a lot more of this, especially where we see the jail diversion, is people that are in custody. And we have the prosecutor there, we have the defense attorney there, and we have, in some cases, the person downstairs, the person in custody downstairs. So there is this personal contact and discussion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Other questions, members? I have one more, same question I asked, Mr. Kimura on. Everyone occasionally disagrees with the law. Judges are in a unique position of interpreting and enforcing statutes. Will you have any trouble enforcing statutory provisions you don't agree with?
Absolutely not, Chair Rhodes. I do this, I have, as a per diem, I regularly, I always follow the law as it is written. If there is an issue regarding interpretation, I look to the legislative intent.
Okay, Chair. Yeah, Senator Gabbard, go ahead. Thank you.
The criminal justice system reform in Hawaii, what would be at the top of your list?
That is a great question, Mr. Gabbard, and Senator Gabbard. I think that we are seeing an unprecedented problem with mental illness and substance abuse, and I think we need creative options and as many tools as we can get to address the underlying issues that we're seeing in criminal court.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, thanks very much. We'll go ahead and move on to Judiciary Communication number 2, Robert J. Brown, for consideration confirmation of the District Court of the First Circuit for a term to expire in 6 years. First up on JC2 is Kimmy Murphy E.J. Foster. Good morning.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Senators. My name is Kimmy Foster, and I'm testifying in strong support of RJ Brown. I know it says Robert, but we're not going to get through this, so I have to remember to call him Robert the whole time. I stand in my testimony. RJ is a classmate of mine and has remained a dear, dear friend. It's written in here, but I think what really makes RJ specifically situated for this kind of role is he is one of the most even-tempered, fair people I have ever met in my life. RJ has no problem listening to opposing points of view, and he has no problem admitting when maybe he needs to learn a little bit more about that or standing on his principles. He has always been one of the best people I know, and I'm thrilled to be sitting here in support for him. If there are any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
If you can stay around, we'll go through all the testifiers, and then if people have questions, if members have questions, we'll go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Macklin Keikoa Sanderson. Followed by Chukwu Louis. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Senators. I'm here to testify in strong support of Robert J. Brown. RJ, as I know him. I've known RJ since 2000 when we started at Punahou together as freshmen. We were on the wrestling team together, and RJ is an incredible person. And coming from Australia, he immediately was able to gain and keep a diverse group of friends. He has an incredible work ethic. We served together on the meat club at Punahou, where we did a lot of community service, from beach cleanups to direct support and feeding the homeless with IHS. He's always been an incredibly compassionate person and very, very hardworking. He played Division I football at CU Boulder, and despite not being the hugest person in the world, was special teams captain and All-American football player. Since then, RJ has remained active in community service with the Institute for Human Services and the Boys and Girls Club. And I think he has incredible judicial temperament, and I stand in strong support for him. I'm here to answer any questions after.
Thanks very much. Next is Chukwu Louis. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members. My name is Chukwu Louis. I met Mr. Brown when we were both baby prosecutors several years ago. We were teammates at one point and we became really good friends. Mr. Brown is always professional, intelligent, great sense of humor. He's very dedicated to his family and the community. It sounds cliche, but I found Mr. Brown to be doing what's right every time, even when no one's watching. I support Mr. Brown without any reservation. I have no doubt that he will be a great, he has great judicial temperament, impartiality, and all the other great qualities to be a fine judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kyle Timothy Dowd, followed by Eric Robinson. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, and fellow senators. My name is Kyle Dowd. I'm an attorney in private practice here in Honolulu. I specialize in criminal defense. However, before that, I served as a deputy prosecuting attorney, and that's how I came to know Mr. Brown, who I consider to be a very close friend through. I otherwise generally submit on my written testimony. However, I chose to appear and testify in person for two reasons. Number one, I chose to testify in front of the committee to express the sincerity of what I've written on behalf of Mr. Brown. And also I wanted to demonstrate in front of this committee my public and very strong support for Mr. Brown. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Eric Robinson, followed by Judith Pavey. Morning.
Morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, members of the committee. My name is Eric Robinson, and I'm here today to testify in strong support of Mr. Robert J. Brown, or RJ, as we all know him. I submitted written testimony, which I won't repeat here, but I did want to emphasize a few points since the committee's been kind enough to give us the opportunity to testify today. So while reflecting on what I wanted to speak about for Mr. Brown, I started to think about how he embodied the ideals of what a Richardson lawyer is. So there's a very long list of his qualifications, but I think three things come to mind. First is that RJ practices with aloha and civility, even when it's a highly contested, knockdown, drag out, ugly fight. Mr. Brown treats everyone with integrity, respect, and empathy. He practices with integrity, and he always does what's right, even when that means taking the difficult issues and questions that people might want to kick down the road. He rolls his sleeves up and he gets it done. And finally, he practices with a high level of competence. In law, issues are often complicated and hairy. Mr. Brown is not afraid of getting into issues that he needs to learn more about, learning about them, and diving into the tough questions. So I believe he's already demonstrated these qualifications during his time in the bench as a per diem judge in the family court. I think he'd be a tremendous addition to the judiciary and an asset to the people of the First Circuit. I thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you very much. Next is Judith Pavey, followed by P. Gregory Fry. Judith Pavey is in support. Greg Fry. Good morning.
Morning.
Aloha, Judge, or Chair Rhodes.
I'm not qualified to be a judge, so thank you. But
I spend all my time in the courtroom. And each member, each senator of this extremely important committee. I stand by my written testimony, but I'm here today to speak publicly about a per diem judge who, as a litigator in family court for 36 years, and it is all I do. I appear before hundreds of judges in my time. A prior speaker spoke of civility. Years ago, the senior judge, Michael Town, created the Code of Civility, a written booklet that he required each practitioner to bring to court. It still remains a part of our Hawaii Divorce Manual. Judge Brown is a young person who apparently has the old soul of living up to that code of civility in every regard. I have never been so impressed with a judge. His control of the courtroom, his knowledge of the rules of evidence, and probably most importantly, the way he deals and approaches litigants and the practitioners makes everybody know, and most importantly, the litigants, that there is truly an access to justice. I have appeared before him with extremely complicated cases, and the lead judges who are assigned to that case each time have assigned Judge Brown as the per diem judge to make very big
Thank you very much. Your
decisions.
2 minutes is over.
Thank you.
Next is Ivan Louis Kwan. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Mike Alcone, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, members of the committee. My name is Ivan Louis Kwan. It is my honor to give my highest recommendation of Robert J. Brown to become a district court judge. It is my strong belief that if confirmed, R.J. Brown will be an outstanding judge. I would give R.J. Brown very high marks for integrity, fairness, judgment, analytical capacity, respect, and independence. His integrity is at the highest level. He's an extraordinarily fair person. He has excellent judgment. His analytical skills are superior. He treats all people with respect and dignity. I believe that he will act with independence on the bench. I'm a director at the law firm Starno 2 Marcus and Fisher. As you know, RJ is an attorney in our law firm. One of the guiding principles in our law firm is collaboration among all team members in the firm, committed to act in the best interest of our clients. RJ is a part of the fabric of our firm. For this reason, we are very sad to see RJ leave the firm. On the other hand, our law firm is totally committed to the rule of law. We all understand the rule of law depends substantially on good judges, judges who are fair, competent, and independent, judges who every day deliver justice to our citizens throughout our state, through our state judiciary. Justice contributes to a very quality of life. For this reason, we at the law firm are excited to see RJ become a member of the state judiciary. As I indicated, he is fair, competent, and independent. If confirmed, he will be an outstanding judge and a valuable contributing member of our judiciary. Mahalo nui for allowing me to testify.
Thanks very much. Next is Miley Miller. Good morning.
Good morning, Senators. I'll be quick as RJ clearly has a lot of support. I've known RJ since I was 15, like Mac, and I would just like to add that in addition to everything that everybody has already said so far, I think what really stands out about RJ is not only how he's managed to handle all of his successes in life, but also some of his failures. And RJ has had certain setbacks, and those have never stopped him, and he has handled them with integrity and grace. It has been amazing for me to be able to practice beside him at Starno Tool the past few years in private practice. And before that, it was lovely to watch him excel at the prosecutor's office. He just was so happy doing it, and he did such a good job, and he took such care in doing everything. Like everyone, I'm available for questions, but I stand in strong support of RJ Brown being appointed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving to Zoom, Darla Abateo or Abatilo. Apologies.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Not present. She's in support. William Harrison.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
He's also in support. Okay, we'll save HSBA for last. Is there anybody else here who would like to testify? Okay, hang on. Let's we'll start with you and then we'll go there. Come on up. Come on up. Sorry. Yeah. Good morning.
Hi there. My name's Sharon Lovejoy. I'm a 35-year practitioner and am a senior litigation attorney at Starno Tool. I am here to give my highest support to RJ. He has an extremely practical and interesting background in order to serve as one of our judges. I hate to lose him. I love having him on one of my litigation teams, but with a background as a prosecutor, with being a per diem judge and having experience in complex civil litigation, he really has a background that will be a huge benefit to our judiciary. And while I hate to lose him, I think he would be a really great add for our judiciary and for the state of Hawaii. And I stand in strong support.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Gentleman here. Oh, Mr. Lincoln. Good morning again.
Good morning, David Minkin again from the McCorriston firm. I, as an ex-prosecutor, often go to the prosecutor's office to look for candidates. I speak to judges. In this particular situation, I was able to not only speak to judges about good prosecutors, and RJ Brown came to mind from all of them. He was number one. But my son was also a prosecutor working at the prosecutor's office under Mr. Brown. He's now at the Attorney General's office. We interviewed Mr. Brown. He ended up going to another firm, but he is that type of person that will be a wonderful addition to the judiciary. Can't say anything more than he will be a fabulous judge in the district or family court. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify? Anybody else who's in the room here like to come on up? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator, Chair, Vice Chair, members. My name is Lindsay Orman. I submitted written testimony as well. I'm also at Starn O'Toole and have worked with RJ for several years as a colleague. He's become my friend. He's a wonderful human. He's an outstanding attorney, and I think he will be an exceptional judge. I stand in strong support and echo everyone else's comments and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one in the room, anyone in Zoom land that wants to testify on JC2? Okay, so before we go forward, we have 85 people testifying in support, 0 opposed, and then 1 comment, which is the HSBA. Before we go to HSBA, members, any questions for any of the testifiers? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Griswold. Qualified. Any questions for Ms. Griswold? Okay, Judge Brown, come on up.
Good morning, Senators. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for giving me this chance to address each of you. Hearing all the testimony is a little overwhelming for me. Yeah, two years ago, I would not have ever anticipated being in this position, this seat. This was not part of my plan. This was not part of the agenda. This wasn't something I was posturing for or angling. Frankly, I got a call out of the blue from a judge that I did a number of trials with when I was a prosecutor, and she had suggested that I apply to be a per diem judge. The thought was to go over to district court, but because my firm does some work in there, they ultimately put me out in family court, and the last 2 years of my life has fundamentally altered my life. Having the opportunity to be a judge, even in the per diem capacity, has been the most fulfilling professional experience of my life. I am so grateful to have the opportunity to use whatever skills that I've got, in my interest level to try to help people on a daily basis. And that's what I endeavor to do when I sit. It's what I endeavor to do when I'm a litigator, as a former prosecutor. That's what drives me, and that's what I hope to accomplish if I have the opportunity to sit in a full-time or on a full-time basis. I believe that I understand the gravity of the responsibility that I'm asking you all to confer upon me. I believe that I respect this role sufficiently. And if you all do give me this chance, you certainly have my word that I will do all in my power to do right every day, to achieve just outcomes, to help people in the way that I can. Again, I'm just profoundly grateful to be here, and want to make myself available to any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions? Senator Elefante.
Yes, congratulations, Judge Brown, on your appointment and nomination to serve on the bench. You heard the question that I had earlier for Judge Ireland, and I know we talked about this as well. And being a former deputy prosecutor, how would you approach a situation like that with an individual that's kind of been going in the community as a TRO, has basically impacted people and their livelihoods? So if you were to continue on in your role as a judge, how would you address that?
I felt that Judge Ireland's answer was exceptional. I agree with her wholeheartedly. I think you've got to take cases on a case-by-case basis. Everything depends on the facts. I've learned over the course of my career and since going into law school to try my best to keep my mouth shut unless I understand an issue. unless I understand the facts. And I think that oftentimes things are far more complicated than you give it credit for at first blush. You know, certainly if I was going to be positioned at district court and had to be handing down criminal sentences, a person's prior history is a very important component of how I would evaluate whether or not jail time, for example, would be necessary, whether a diversion program might be appropriate, things of that nature. I can tell you that as a former prosecutor, I never had any joy. I never had any, I wasn't the type of person that liked recommending prison sentences, jail sentences. It's just not part of my makeup. However, as a former prosecutor, I also believe in the value of accountability. And, you know, sometimes it is necessary to confine people, whether from a punishment perspective or from, you know, in an effort to make sure that the conduct doesn't reoffend or reoccur. So you take it all, you take the facts of the case, you take their prior history, and you try to come up with a solution that's going to benefit potentially the defendant, but also the community at large, because ultimately my job is to keep the public safe. I've got 4 young sons. You know, I've got all my friends here that work downtown. You know, we all want to live in a safe community. And I do believe that's a fundamental role of being a judge. And it's one that I take seriously, and will do all in my power to ensure that this is a safe community for you, for me, for my kids, and for whoever else is coming around.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Brown. Thank you, Chair.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson, one to ensure.
Okay, thank you so much. So you've heard my questions with Judge Ireland.
Yes.
So let's talk about percentages. How often have you sat in as a per diem for the past since September 21 on a per month basis?
I would guesstimate 3 to 4 times a month, something in that ballpark.
Okay, so and of those 3 to 4, so about once a week.
Thereabouts. Yeah.
So on those once a week, how often, I mean, what's the percentage between criminal and civil, or do you do any criminal at all? In
the only
court?
quasi-criminal calendar I've sat over has been the drug courts, both the juvenile drug court as well as the adult drug court, which is itself a specialty sort of diversion program. But I have not, the family court only does juvenile criminal offenders. And so I have not sat on the juvenile criminal calendar yet.
Okay, so you didn't even sit on FCCRs?
No, I've done
family household members.
No, I have not done any of that. I've done special and domestic, which has been TROs as well as divorce cases predominantly.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure how Honolulu FCCRs work. Have you done referrals to the FCCRs when you see any abuse of family household member type TROs?
Not to date.
So if you only sit once a week, but you do refer to divorce proceedings, what kind of divorce proceedings do you preside over?
Any and all. I mean, anytime you've got a party going through divorce, typically there's going to be, or oftentimes, not typically, but oftentimes you're going to have child custody issues in play. That can kind of create situations where you've got very long-term cases because situations may arise, contested issues may arise over the course of long periods of time. Occasionally you've got pro se litigants that have an issue. They're trying to work out how to divvy up their estate, or you've got parties that are represented by very competent counsel, and the issues might be even more complex under those circumstances. But maybe I'm not fully appreciating your question or understanding, but all sorts of divorces, anytime people are going through a breakup, and if it gets contested, I'll get involved.
Okay, so yeah, I'm confused.
I know. Let me help. I apologize.
Okay, because as I told you, and I see Tom Farrell out there also, I do a lot of family court cases before I became a legislator. And it always helped when we had one judge determine
absolutely
the issues and divorce proceedings. So do you make determinations regarding custody?
Yes, when I sit.
Even though there are, custody disputes are
very complicated, very difficult oftentimes. And I think I'm tracking and
I'm trying to figure out how you do it if you only sit once a week.
Right. So I would agree with you that generally speaking, when you've got a long-term judge in place that knows the parties, knows the nuances, knows what's going on over the course of a broad period of time, that's ideal, certainly.
Right.
But when I have to sit as a per diem, just like Judge Ireland or otherwise, you've got to move the case forward, and you've got to do the job that you've been called to do. So as part of that, I spent a great deal of time in preparation efforts to understand detail by detail, docket by docket, what has gone on since the inception of the case. I know all the prior motions that have been filed. I generally understand what the rulings have been with respect to those motions. I know the motion before me or the trial before me, whatever it may be. And I I make the calls that I believe are appropriate and necessary under the circumstances, because that's what they're paying me to do. And that's the obligation that I've got to do the job. I've never thought of myself as a per diem that was sort of there to kick the can down the road or to babysit. My role has been to make the hard calls. And,
Okay, so and as a litigator, I appreciate
Senator,
that.
can I come up? Happy to have you ask more
Sorry.
questions, but let me just see if anybody else has one. I'll come back to you. Any other questions? Senator Gabbard, go ahead.
Yeah, Judge, the same question I've asked the other nominees about the criminal justice system reform. What would be at the top of your list?
I think I agree that substance abuse, mental health issues are a dominant concern. As a former prosecutor, it was always my experience that methamphetamine or other drugs were, they touched maybe the majority or even the vast majority of the criminal conduct that I dealt with. I developed an animosity for methamphetamine in the sense that it was just always problematic. It always created these difficult circumstances for people that, in order to feed the addiction, they had to do, or they undertook certain conduct that was not right. So substance abuse is key. I think if you can get people help, it's sort of a no-brainer in the sense that if I can get people help and if I can be part of that process and someone can overcome their addiction issues, and I think they're going to be less likely to reoffend, and we're going to have more space in our jails for the actual people that need to be there, et cetera. I also think that there's a second component, which is that, there seems to be public distrust. Maybe not distrust, but a lack of faith that the system is operating in the way that it needs to operate. As a former prosecutor, it was my experience that almost to a person, everybody there was trying to do the right thing for the state, for the community, for the defendant. It was my experience that public defenders were there to do the right thing for their client, to uphold constitutional norms and values. And the system, generally speaking, was comprised of good people trying to do right. But for reasons that I think are difficult and varied and nuanced, the system has a perception, fair or not, that the outcomes oftentimes are unjust, that you've got offenders that should be incarcerated that are not incarcerated, that you've got people that get, put into prison that maybe shouldn't be. And, I suppose that I would want to be part of the solution to that, to reestablishing public faith and public trust within the system, to ensure that people know that the judiciary is doing its best to keep them safe, to help people when it's within our control to do that. And so maybe that's not a precise answer to your question, but that's what I thought.
Follow-up question.
Please.
One of the testifiers said that you had experienced some setbacks in your life.
Sure.
Just to get more of an insight into you as a person, would you be willing to share one of the, let's say, your greatest setback and how you overcame it?
Oh, I think all of us as individuals are full of personal failures. It's been my experience that when I have fallen short of my own expectations, that I lean into my faith. I don't want to get too detailed with you, but I feel like we each of us has our anchor, the thing that we kind of tether ourselves to make sure that we can proceed forward. Faith has been important to me, and so when I have fallen short, when I have not conducted myself in the way that I would hope to, I've tried to remind myself what matters to me, and so that has been a great support and joy for me. In terms of what she was specifically referencing, I'm not sure. Miley's known me a long time. So she has seen the highs and the lows, but I think like all of us, I have fallen short. And I think part of that is what I hope has made me an effective prior prosecutor or hopefully an effective judge in the days to come, because I don't look at anybody else as less than me, as worse than me. I know what I am. I know what we all are, and we're all trying to do our best to do right. And to, that's what I try to do. So,
thank you, Judge. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions before we go back to Senator San Buenaventura?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Senator San Buenaventura.
So, I tend to be short, and I'm sorry.
No, not at all, please.
And I did that a lot with Judge Ireland. Okay, but I do want to commend all of you folks really for putting your application in and subjecting yourself to all of this. And in your particular case, when I do appreciate the fact when I look through all of this, that despite serving in family court for almost 2 years, admittedly before COVID, during COVID, that I don't see anything negative, no negative testimony here, which to me is surprising because family court is super emotional.
It is.
Okay, and also that I do also appreciate the fact that as a law student, you were part of the Innocence Project.
Yes.
And that you are a big brother, and having a bachelor's of science degree in math, as nominee Judge Jordan had knows. I do appreciate that you are a lecturer of space law and policy, and have written about it too.
That was fun.
So I appreciate all of this because it shows a more well-rounded
Thank you.
picture of you. So, but I do want to know about custody because that's super emotional.
Sure.
It affects people. It affects the kids. Have you had any CPS cases?
I've had cases that have had CPS components, certainly. Whether in both in TROs, you oftentimes get CPS involved, but also in the primary calendars. Typically, when I've had them, CPS has been previously involved.
So when you say CPS is involved, like in the TROs,
sure.
Do you? Because it sounds like you prep for your cases, which
Always.
I love, by the way. Okay, and I do, and as all of you folks have come in front of me, in my office, I'll talk to you all about my pet peeves. And my number one pet peeve is indecisiveness.
Right, make the call.
Especially if you're going to be applying for a judge. So I do super appreciate that. What I want to know is, at the time when you're doing the temporary restraining orders, how soon does the CPS get involved? Are they there at the time of the hearing when you see a potential abuse? Or
almost without fail. Occasionally there are late reports, but when you've got when there's a report made and you've got a child involved issue, DHS will very quickly insert themselves. They'll generate a report, indicate whether or not there's a confirmation of certain allegations,
right.
And then we use those reports certainly to evaluate whether or not a TRO will be appropriate.
Sometimes the police forget though to call CPS in at the time of the hearing. So when does that happen? When that happens, do you do a referral and then continue the hearing, or what happens?
I've almost without fail, I've had my report in place prior to the hearing. Now, sometimes it's the morning of the hearing because they've got a significant caseload and they've got a lot of places to be, and they're trying to generate substantive reports on difficult contexts and issues. But I may have had to refer a case out on occasion, but I would say generally speaking, the front work is done by the time that hearing, because when you got a TRO, there's a call, they file their petition, and then within 2 weeks, essentially, we have the hearing. Within that gap, that time frame is when CPS.
Have you ever had to find a CPS social worker?
Fine? No, I have not.
Okay, so you haven't actually, well, because.
I'm sorry, did you say fined or fine?
Fine.
As in financial fine? I have not, no.
Good. Thank you. Okay, because it's overstressed as it is. But it sounds like to me at once a week, you haven't had to deal with CPS cases.
It happens.
FCP, sometimes a paternity, sometimes there's a CPS involvement.
Sure.
But you haven't had to deal with CPS cases on a regular basis.
Not on a regular basis. I
Okay.
was doing special calendar, which is the TROs. Earlier on, I've been doing more the domestic calendar now, which has been more the divorce matters. And so it does come up. But we've got guardian ad items in place. There's going to be a best interest fact finder. So we've got a lot of information at our fingertips to try to make the right calls in the best interest of the child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Other questions, members? Okay, I have a couple. So you've been in family court. You want to stay in family court? Is that
I love family court. It's a unique environment. I think it's a difficult place to serve effectively, but I think I believe I have the personality for it. I enjoy it. I like feeling useful there, and so ultimately, if that's where they put me, I'm going to be very gratified. If I was to be placed into district court at the leisure of the Chief Justice, I'd be extremely happy to be there too. Okay. I think you can do good in either form.
So you ran for Honolulu prosecutor in 2020.
Fairly poorly, yes.
What was your platform?
My platform at the time, and you know, my inability to express this is probably evidence of why I didn't succeed in that way. But you know, there was a lot of turmoil at the prosecutor's office at the time. As I mentioned previously, I loved the prosecutor's office. I loved the people there. I felt that they were good people trying to do what was right. I thought that they had their reputations maligned, you know, due to the bad actions of certain individuals. And you know, I would say a driving factor for me was to want to come in there and make sure that people trusted what the prosecutors were doing, and to ensure that if I was the guy that was going to end up in a position of authority over that office, that I was going to make it certain that the prosecutors knew that their primary obligation was to do what was right and to achieve just outcomes. And I wanted them to have tools at their disposal to work with defendants, for example, to try to get people with substance abuse issues and to help if we could. I wanted to make sure that our primary focus was on crimes of violence, theft, you know, situations as well, things that were impacting the community at large. I suppose I just wanted to ensure that we were doing the job which was called to do, which was to be ministers of justice, to do it the way it's supposed to be done, which they typically do. And I just wanted to be part of that.
So I think you said that you were on the special calendar. I think you have been on the special calendar at family court.
Yeah.
Have you done an ACT, assisted community treatment petition yet?
I have many.
And you basically the same question I've asked before. Philosophically, you don't have a problem with the underlying law as long as.
No, so long as the respective burdens are met, whether it's clear and convincing evidence, or, you know, preponderance, whatever it might be for the particular thing that you're looking at. I do, you know, hold the litigants to their burden because I have a great deal of respect for the constitutional rights, bodily integrity, things of those natures. But I also appreciate why the law is there, why it's in place, and I not have occasion to date to not grant one because I've always found thus far the burdens.
Okay, that was my next question. Said you actually approved one yet? Okay, and then again, the same question as previous. I think it was Judge Ireland. What do you view as more restrictive, sending somebody to the state hospital or assisted community treatment?
You know, sending to the state hospital is probably the right answer. It's anytime you're going to completely confine somebody to an institution, obviously that's a significant intrusion into their rights. But you know, again, I don't poo-poo what ACT is trying to accomplish when you've got forced medication, things of that nature. You've got to really think about what you're doing, and you've got to be clear that the person is in need of it, and the burdens have been satisfied again.
Okay. Then, as I've asked everyone so far, everyone occasionally disagrees with the law. Judges are in a unique position of interpreting and enforcing statutes. We have any trouble enforcing statutory provisions you don't agree with?
None. No.
Okay. All right. Senator Awa, sorry.
I just have a comment. Out of all these confirmation hearings so far, I just want to let you know that you've by far been the impressive candidate to come through. Keith Regan's, you know, was right up there, but I don't know how to express how impressed I am with how you handle yourself, support. Obviously, you're a wrestler, you got the integrity, so not there. But just wanted to let you know that.
I'm grateful for that, Senator. I'm amongst exceptional people here as my fellow nominees. I'm very thankful for that. Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? If not, thanks so much.
Thank you, Senators.
Next up is Judiciary Communication number 3, David M. Hayakawa for District Court of the First Circuit for a term to expire in 6 years. First up on JC3 is Thomas Farrell. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Rhodes, members of the committee. I'm Tom Farrell. I've practiced law here in Honolulu since I think before a couple of the members of this committee were born. I'm in strong support of Dave Hayakawa as district judge, and I noticed that there's been quite a bit of discussion about the fact that the Chief Justice has the option to send you either to district court or to family court once you're confirmed. Dave is well known as a preeminent criminal defense practitioner, but he also has substantial experience in family law. We're both alumni of Hawaii's oldest and largest family law firm, Coates and Fry. And I know that he will do a great job wherever he's placed. I did want to mention one other thing. I did not submit testimony regarding Judge Brown. And the only reason that I did not is I've only appeared in front of him once. So my lack of testimony should in no way be interpreted as a lack of support for his nomination, particularly based on what I've heard this morning.
Okay, thank you. Next is P. Gregory Fry. Morning again.
Thank you.
appreciate being back. I do stand on my written testimony, but wanted to, I think, focus and hone in on one particular area that I really believe is important. As Mr. Farrell said, he and I and Mr. Hayakawa worked together for many years. I had the opportunity to watch two exceptional litigators. Mr. Hayakawa, you need only look in the newspaper or watch the news to know how incredibly talented he is in the courtroom. But my emphasis is a bit different. I firmly believe, having spent my entire career in family court, that the district court and the most important leader of that, being the judge, has to understand that the realities is the number of people overwhelmingly need help, and they need it now. And there aren't enough judges. There aren't enough bailiffs. There aren't enough clerks to service for each person as long as that person wants to be serviced. The key is to make them know they have been heard, they have been understood, they have been cared about for the minutes that the judge has to do that, and that each person feels as if access to justice, no matter how many minutes the judge has been partly achieved. Mr. Hayakawa is a fast talker, a fast mover. He organizes almost on a dime, and he can push forward with that feeling of care and attention. He will be an exceptional district court judge for what I think will be the remainder of his career. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Moving to the Zoom side, Ayano Hara Nishimura.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
In support, Peter Faulkner.
Not present on Zoom either, Chair.
Also in support, Sydney Chu.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
In support, Mark Maleko McDonald. There you are. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, honorable members of the committee. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I'm going to stand on my testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is William Harrison.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
In support. That's everybody who signed up to be in person or on Zoom. Does anyone else wish to testify in JC3? Okay, we'll do it the other way around. We'll go with Mr. Minkin first. Morning again.
Good morning, David Minkin again. Former prosecutor. I first met David Hayakawa when he was in law school at UH, Richardson School of Law, my alma mater also. I was a guest lecturer on a Saturday for a trial practice class by retired Judge Marie Milks, and David Hayakawa was one of the students that I had to lecture and then judge for a presentation. David Hayakawa back then, while a law student, showed his ability to be a consummate trial lawyer. David Hayakawa then went to the public defender's office for a number of years. We never had cases against each other, but I was able to watch him grow as a young attorney. And when I left the prosecutor's office and went to private practice, I occasionally represent folks in criminal cases, and I have co-counseled with Mr. Hayakawa on a couple of cases. He is smart, he is dedicated. I am absolutely thrilled that he wants to go back into public service. He is perfect for the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning again.
Chair, member of the committee, Sharon Lovejoy again. I have not known David for a long time, but for the last couple of years, I have served as faculty on the HSBA's Trial Academy that David has run. And through we practice very different areas of law. I'm in complex commercial litigation, he does criminal law, but you can tell he just has an amazing rapport with the young students and the young lawyers, as well as enormous respect among the, very experienced practitioners who have been involved in that trial academy. And he just has done an excellent job. And you can tell he has a heart for service, and I too am very happy that he has submitted and is being considered to be a judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to testify on JC3? In Zoom land, anyone out there? Okay, HSBA?
Thank you once again. We stand by our written testimony.
Qualified. Okay, members, any questions for testifiers? Okay, if not, before you come up, I'm going to take a short recess. So 5-minute recess and then we'll go with Mr. Hayakawa. Recess. Okay, out of recess, Mr. Hayakawa, please proceed.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the break. Thank you, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, members of our Senate Judiciary Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'd like to start with a little background about myself, as well as why I am thrilled and to serve as a district court judge, if confirmed. First of all, I owe the fact that I'm even here today to the influence of my parents, who instilled within me a sense of justice and the importance of justice from a very young age. I'm especially grateful that my 96-year-old father is here today. As a little side note, he's published twice in the last year in the Star Advertiser op-eds on the role of justice in our community as related to his past experiences in his life. I believe that my parents' internment in World War II shaped their beliefs that were then passed down to me, as well as the examples they lived in their lives. And I've done my best to carry this out. And basically that the core role of our judicial system is to protect all of us equally, including the downtrodden, the less fortunate, and the members of our society who at a particular time may be ostracized for particular reasons. I attended Ainahaina Elementary, New Valley Intermediate, which is a short walk from our family home where my father still lives. I'm a proud graduate of Kalani High School, UH Manoa, and the Richardson School of Law at Manoa. Once I started law school, I very quickly confirmed my belief that I wanted to spend, or at least start, my career in the courtroom. And that was reinforced whether in part-time jobs throughout law school and internships and of that sort. And I'm grateful that for the 35 years of my law career, it has basically all been spent in the courtroom. I'd be surprised if, other than vacations, if I went a week without appearing in the courtroom at least once over those 35 years. Even during pandemic, a few of the areas that I practiced in were the areas of court that were open for most of pandemic. And so I'm grateful for that, actually, that I wasn't stuck at home. I love my career. I'm grateful to this committee. I'm grateful that if confirmed by this committee and by the Senate overall, that I will be able to continue to spend the next 6 years of my career in the courtroom, albeit as a much different role as a judge instead of an advocate. I fully understand the major change from serving as a lifelong advocate to serving as a judge. And I believe that the experience I've had and the growth one naturally grows through the process of being in court that long has prepared me for the challenges that lay ahead. I am actually incredibly excited about the challenges that lay ahead. I love a challenge, and I know it's going to take a lot of hard work and effort to become the best judge I can be, and that's what I will promise. I will strive to be the most effective and best judge I can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, questions?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Nope. Okay, Senator Elefante, go ahead.
Two-part question. The first one is a question I've asked previously to the previous nominees in terms of that particular individual going through the neighborhood, causing disruption. As a judge, being that you have a lot of experience on the criminal defense side, and have, worked with clients of this nature, how would you, go about a case like that with someone as a TRO and kind of damaging property and causing fear within the community?
I mean, first of all, much different than my two predecessors who are actually serving as district court judge or per diem judges at this time, and I believe are a bit more limited. I've actually served assisted community groups. I was the lawyer for 3 of the plaintiffs who were dealing for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years with that individual who ended up burning down portions of our Diamond Head community and murdering 2 police officers. I was defending those residents in that, and we won every single step of the way. But the laws are very limited and in what you can do. So I think my first reaction as a judge would be, I'm not sure the status of that case. I'm not sure I can comment on exactly how we would do things, but a lot of the issues come forth with how the cases are set up when they come to the court. And unfortunately, I think people expect the court to solve a lot of those problems. And yet the vehicle from which that case arrived at the court is sometimes limited. I will say that individual rights and the right to do what you want within your property severely does limit what the court can do, as we experienced in that Diamond Head case. I've also worked with several other community groups where they do have that one individual coming to the community, destroying the fabric and peace of that community, and the police are on board, the prosecutors are on board, and it really takes a community effort to organize their approach.
And then, being that you had such a successful career, why would you want to change and become a judge? I've actually been asked that question a lot, and by peers. I think my entire life I've always been thrust towards in the direction of public service. I did look at the public defender's office, which I was honored to be a member of for 13 years, as public service. I love that job, and I probably worked more hours in that job than any job I've had in my career. I was there almost all the time. And even once I matriculated from that into private practice, I've maintained I really enjoyed helping newer attorneys, younger attorneys. I really appreciate a number of these letters that have come in or testimony that have come in. I kind of don't remember them all. And it's really a feel-good moment to read some of those on some of the individuals I've worked with over the years. But to help other attorneys be better lawyers, to better serve our community is probably, I felt, was the best use of my time in public service to make us a better system. And I've served individuals and made sure their rights are protected, I do believe that my skill set enables me and gives me the opportunity to serve a much broader section of our community as a judge, and I'm very excited about it. I like a challenge. I don't know if that's a judicial thing to say, but I know it'll be a challenge to strive to be the best judge I can be. Thank you, and congratulations on your appointment. Thank you, Chair.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Okay, and like all the other nominees, I thank you for putting your application in. You're obviously an excellent litigator. I mean, we see the results in the news. But being an outstanding litigator does not necessarily translate to being a good judge. You know that.
Yes.
So I guess and like to all of the nominees, I already went through my pet peeves as a litigator, and I was a per diem judge at one time too. For your case, because I noticed that unlike the other nominees who have served as per diems and have been tested, would you be able to, for lack of a better term, muzzle yourself when you see incompetent counsel in front of you? Because let's face it, right? District court is where baby attorneys show up.
Understood.
Okay, but we don't need an advocate judge to advocate for one over the other. You're supposed to be impartial.
Understood.
So will you be able to muzzle yourself if you see but still be able to provide justice, because we do want justice?
Well, I think those are two separate branches there. First of all, dealing with attorneys. I think one of the reasons I discussed helping young attorneys. So, and it took a while for me to learn how to do that. It's not instantaneous, something I learned in trial and error. I'm a trial and error guy. And I did learn how to work with many younger attorneys, some attorneys who clearly needed some assistance and help. And sometimes those attorneys are not necessarily the ones who are the most receptive to help. So you have to learn, let's face it, to maximize the impact. This is not about my ego, do what I want. It's about how do we help that individual become better. And that's one of the toughest things I had to learn over the years and teaching. And unfortunately, I've had a lot of years to learn it. So I am not as concerned about working with younger attorneys or attorneys who are not, who can disrupt the flow of a courtroom, let's say. And, you know, public chastisement does not work. It just doesn't. It hardens their resolve. You just need to pull them in back and communicate with them in a manner that you believe will maximize. I'm not saying they're going to have a lifelong change here, but you make a dent, you start change in a small way, and you hope that they see a positive, that there is the ability to take input from somebody else given in a proper way and maybe consider it and make change. And you hopefully that will start a process within them. As far as muzzling myself, and I fully understand that, first of all, I'm used to being muzzled by courts.
Yes.
So I fully understand that.
So you know what I'm talking about. Basically, when a judge comes in and starts questioning the witness themselves because the baby attorney doesn't know how to ask the right questions. So we don't need an advocate judge. I think I've talked to all nominees. That's what bench conferences are for. That's what chamber conferences are for. But when we have an advocate judge, you don't have the impartiality, the appearance of impartiality that you really need the public to see.
I understand your point. I do know, and I am very aware of judges asking questions and necessarily deviating from the flow of my plan in a courtroom and or clearing up issues that the other side has not thought to clear up. And I obviously am aware of those issues. So I am aware of that. However, I do note that in a justice system, especially at district court, the district court judge is given authority to speak up. And there it is not, I learned a long time ago from some of the old time judges, this is not it's not a contest. It's not a game. You know, justice needs to be dispensed, and the final arbitrator of that is the judge. Therefore, if some key questions are not asked, because a lot of times the inexperience of the lawyers and the district court's filled with a lot of rookies, I do believe in certain situations, it is incumbent on the judge to speak up and ask those questions, because justice has to be, the end product has to be justice and not based on a rookie lawyer here or there doing something or another, or not doing something.
Okay, but you also know that there is a line though.
Oh, clear. I'm very aware of that, and I've been experienced judges speaking up in my cases numerous times.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
Well, members, other questions? Senator Gabbard.
Yes, Mr. Hayakawa, as I've asked the other nominees, criminal justice system reform in Hawaii, what's at the top of your list?
I echo all the answers, but I think my brain tends to focus a little bit on some more direct, immediate type of things. First of all, substance abuse, mental health are, I don't know, 90, 80% of the issues many times. but it's the speed with which we provide those services. I think that was Judge Ireland talked about that a bit, when, especially the mental health individuals, they're motivated there, they've been stabilized a bit, and then delay occurs and people's minds change, or they status change, they go off their meds. But especially those individuals who are incarcerated, even if it is not getting them out into Sand Island or one of those program beds that are out there, which can take, I don't know, 8 months sometimes. I don't know the exact count on the days nowadays. But, how hard is it to have AA meetings on a regular basis, to generate volunteers in the community to come in there and run the DV classes or discussion groups in there, the anger management group discussions, just to, so people are not just sitting around watching the tube or sitting around thinking what they're going to do when they get out. It's somehow starting to spark that part of their brain, that change is possible when they are most vulnerable. They're stuck in jail and hopefully reevaluating their life. It's that speed factor that the system is just not set up to provide.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Other questions? Okay, I got a couple. Not quite sure. This is probably going to end up being an inartful question, so I apologize. No offense intended. You have quite a number of traffic violations over the years. Many of them were dismissed with prejudice, and so I don't, I understand what that means, but it does seem to me that sometimes in the defensive bar, there's this sort of assumption that if it's dismissed with prejudice, it didn't really happen, whether or not it did. So there's sort of two separate tracks there. There's whether it happened and whether you can prove that it happened, right? So I understand as a judge, you have to have proof that it happened before you can penalize somebody for it. So the question is, are you gonna, I guess it's really a follow on to Senator Sandpoint and Ventura's question, which is you're taking up a new role. Are you going to be able to make the correct distinctions there?
I fully understand the question. I think about 2017, I really made probably the biggest issue in my speeding tickets were when I started taking all the TRO cases out in Kapolei, and I'd be driving out that direction against traffic and sped. And I fully understand that. But 2017, I did realize that change had to come. And I think, plus that was the start of the days now that when you could program your car to bing on you when you go a certain speed. So that's a terrible way of putting it, but I do believe that has made a difference. And of course, once I put in the app, I am very conscious of the need to ultra respect laws, which obviously includes speed limits.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, I've heard judges speaking amongst themselves when I wasn't around, when they didn't know that I was chair of the Judiciary Committee or just didn't know I was there. And they said, yeah, now I gotta stop crossing the street when there's a countdown number going. It actually has to be the white light. So
I have a ticket for that in hotel. Me and 10 other individuals crossed the street, and when it was counting down, we still had this hotel street, just skinny little street. We still had like 15 seconds to go, but they can't cross. I read the law and I clearly was in violation. So I paid my ticket.
Same question I've asked everybody. Everyone occasionally disagrees with the law. Judges that are in a unique position of interpreting and enforcing statutes. You have any trouble enforcing statutory provisions that you don't agree with?
None.
Okay. I think you're expecting to go to district court. Is that correct?
That's what I've been informed.
Okay. If you did end up in family court, which I understand you have some significant background in too, the Assisted Community Treatment Act, are you okay with if the hoops are jumped through, you're okay with the law in general?
Yes, I'm a believer in medication and stabilizing individuals.
Okay.
I have a lot of experience in that area.
Okay. All right, members, other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Hayakawa. We'll, as I've mentioned before, we will meet again at 3 PM in this room for decision making. So we're in recess until 3. Thanks. Thank you all very much.
Good job, Chair.
Thanks.